Okay. So what's today's date? December 20th, 2011?
You're right.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about um, growing up in Council Bluffs when you moved back there from California?
Well, we got on a train in Sacramento and headed for Council Bluffs, Iowa in February of 1941.
Do anything to drink?
I was
Do anything to drink, Dad? Diet Pepsi
I
or
have a
something?
Diet Pepsi and
Okay.
anyway, Mother had taken a job as a nursing instructor. In those days, nurses trained at the hospitals. Most hospitals had a school of nursing, and Mother was going to be one of the instructors at the Jenny Edmondson Memorial Hospital School of Nursing.
And what year was that?
That was 1941. Mother had graduated from that School of Nursing before going to California. And her first cousin, Jesse Workman, was the superintendent of nurses. So Mother had called Jesse and been offered a job. I remember her saying that,
Jesse called your mom or your mom called Jesse?
well, Mother called Jesse because Jesse, I don't think, knew Mother had been through a divorce.
Oh.
And so, anyway, we arrived in Council Bluffs and had our clothes and some, she'd had some of the furniture shipped by train, so as I recall, it was several weeks getting there. After we got there, she found a house to rent. We rented a 2-story house, 612 East Pierce Street.
And you're 11 now, huh?
I'm 11. John hadn't turned 6 yet. He was still 5 years old. I was in 6th grade when we left, and but when we first arrived, since we didn't have a place to stay yet, the student nurses all lived in there at the hospital. So Mother was able to get a room there, and she sent John and I down to Russell to the grandparents' farm. We stayed there for 3 weeks, and then came back. Mother had rented this house, but the furniture hadn't arrived, so she had rented an apartment across the street in a rooming house. And we stayed there for 2 weeks until the furniture arrived. And she took me over to Pierce Street School, and I remember we had a big discussion about whether I wanted to start 6th grade over or go ahead and go into the second half of 6th grade. Well, I wanted to go ahead and finish 6th grade, which is what I did. And then we
Do you remember what was different about California than Iowa when you were moved?
well, of course, where we lived in California, other than one time, I had never seen snow. We had made a trip back to Iowa by train in 1937. Actually, it was for Christmas 36, and they had not had any snow that winter. There were a few drifts that had been around for a while that were dirty, but during the 2 weeks we were there, we didn't get any snow. But we returned home, and I remember this was about the 1st of February, first part of February
So you would have been
of 37.
So you'd have been 7 years old.
I was 7. John was just a toddler. We'd gone to church and came out, and it was snowing. And it was a freak snowstorm because we got almost a foot of snow. It was a heavy, wet snow. But
This is when you were 7 years old. Did you get to go sled riding?
the old man took an orange crate. In those days, oranges came in wooden crates, and put 2 boards on the bottom of it, nailed them on the bottom sides, and used that as a sled. And because we lived on a hill, and there were a couple of areas that were steep enough that you could slide down the hill. So that was my first experience with a sled. And of course, although we kept the box around for a few winters, that was the only snow I encountered in California. But where we lived there in the Sacramento Valley, why, you had, the reason you were able to raise all this fruit and stuff, you had freezing, but I don't think I ever saw it get down below maybe 25 or 20.
Oh, wow.
I didn't see the 10 below zero like we saw in Council Bluffs.
Right.
Anyway.
So, did you buy a nice jacket when you moved there when you were 11? Nice coat?
Mother got us jackets. You know, we had to get winter clothing.
I bet you did.
And anyway, I got enrolled in school, and well, let's see, that summer, the next 3 summers, Mother had us go down to the farm, stay with the grandparents. And
that was the Allens
the Allens.
and Russell.
They were farmers, and John and I stayed there. We'd get up in the morning after breakfast, walk to the mailbox, which was about 3/4 of a mile or a mile from the house, a dirt road. Pick up the mail and walk back. And they did get a newspaper. They got the Ottumwa newspaper. And well, right after we got there and we're in the apartment, and I got enrolled in school, we had to decide on a church. And we'd been members of the Christian church here in Woodland because there was no Presbyterian church. Mother was raised Presbyterian, and so the only first Christian church was downtown. Would have required a streetcar ride to get there because it was quite a ways. And Grace Presbyterian Church was about 3 blocks from us. And so we decided to go to Grace Presbyterian. And So that's how I got switched over to Presbyterian, although I'd been baptized. The disciples of Christ did not believe in infant baptism, so neither John nor I had been baptized until they believed that when you were 9 or 10, you were of an age where you could understand. And they believed in immersion, so they only had an educational building. They held their worship services in the basement there in Woodland. Although in later years they built a very nice sanctuary. But in order to baptize, they utilized the First Baptist Church, which is right across the street. So I remember being dressed up in a nice white suit, and there were several of us in the baptismal group, and went over and went into this baptismal fount. You know, it's like a big bathtub, and the minister gets in there with you, and he lays you under the water 3 times.
So did you have shoes on?
You know.
Just walking with your shoes and suit and everything on, huh?
Yeah, I think I took shoes off, but fully clothed.
Yeah.
Anyway, that
Put you under.
Presbyterians accept any form of baptism, so that was not a problem when we joined Grace Church in Council Bluffs. Anyway, that year, that fall, Mother said, you know, if you want any spending money, we're going to find you a job. And so she answered a want ad with me. Mr. Schmidt had a photo studio. It was downtown, one of those walk-up stairways with his studio on the 2nd floor. And Mr. Schmidt wanted me to sweep and wipe the steps. It was some kind of oil that you use to clean the steps, and then sweep the sidewalk out in front. And so I had to get up before school, go down and sweep the steps and oil them and sweep the sidewalk. I don't think it took me more than 20 minutes or so to do all that, but anyway, I did it. Let's see, I was 12 in February. I did it up until I was 12, and at 12 you could get a work permit and carry papers. Mother asked me if and by the way, Mr. Schmidt paid $0.25 a day, so, and on Saturday, he expected me to carry out empty all the waste baskets and clean the bathroom. And he showed me how to do it. And then there was a fire escape down the back, and I had to sweep the steps on the fire escape. Mm. So I got $1 every week, $0.25 for each of the 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, that I went down, and another $0.25 for Saturday. And so I applied for a paper route. By the way, Mr. Schmidt had made, at Christmas time, he had me come in for a sitting and gave me pictures. I still have one of those.
Do you really?
You
We
know,
had one of your very young ones where you were, I would say you're probably 5 or 6 when you're sitting there.
well, I have the one they took in Woodland. I think I was 4 or 5. That I'm seated on a bench and there's a ball underneath.
I think that might be the one. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
this one was age 11. And then went down and applied for this paper route with the Council Bluffs Non-Pareil.
How much you make doing that?
Well, I made about between $4 and $5 a week.
Oh, so you did a lot better.
They charged 10 cents a week for the paper delivered, and that included a Sunday paper. You had to get up at 4 o'clock on Sunday morning, get down to the newspaper office, pick it up, get it out, get it delivered. And I did that, let's see, I did that that spring, and then that summer again, Mother wanted us to go down to the grandparents. And I got my paper route back again, but I got a better route. I got a route closer to home that second year. Did that a whole year. And let's see, that was through age 13, and then
And what paper was it?
the Council Bluffs Non-Pareil. Non-Pareil is French for superior. It's
So was that the evening
no
paper?
peril.
Or it was
no
the morning paper is what you're saying.
It was an evening paper with a Sunday morning paper,
I see.
7 days a week. And on the farm, the first year we were there, other than gather eggs and slop the hogs and do a few things like that, pick up the mail, we didn't do a whole lot. Then the next year, Grandpa wanted me to help him on drive the team while he loaded hay. So I did that. And then the third and the last summer we were there, he thought I was old enough that I could plow corn. And that's where you have a team of forces. You go out in the cornfield, and you have these cultivators. You have to be very careful and not plow up any corn. The corn is probably a foot high, and you go out and do that all day, and I guarantee you, you'll build some muscles in your arms and legs, because your legs are in stirrups on these cultivators, and they have handles, and you're guiding them between these rows of corn. And
So how many years did you do that for?
that was the last year that I went to the farm. That following
So are you
winter,
implying you're very muscular then?
did what?
Are you implying at that point you're very muscular? Because you could get the stirrups and
Well, yeah,
You're probably a pretty muscular farm boy, weren't you?
Well, I was in reasonably good shape, I'll say that.
Were you?
So, anyway, that spring, uh, I had to give up my paper route to go down there. When I came back, uh, uh, let's see, that was age 13, because the summer that I was 14, I found a job in a service station. This was an independent station, and I talked Mother into not going down to the farm. John went, and I didn't. And I worked evenings for this guy for 10 cents an hour. And I just worked for him for, I think it was, only 3 or 4 weeks, because then Mother wanted me to go join John down on the farm, and which I did. And when I came back, this Frosty Canals that ran the Phillips station saw me, and he knew I'd worked across the street at it's called Coryell. A guy named Coryell had, he was out of Lincoln, Nebraska, and he had half a dozen private brand stations under that Coryell name. And so Frosty saw me walking to the Safeway store to buy groceries or something, and came out and said, and at that point I was thinking about getting a paper out again. And he said, oh yeah, in the meantime, the guy that was the manager of the Coryell station had been let go. So that was not something I was looking at. But Frosty said, would you come after school and work for me while I go to dinner? So that's what I did, and he paid a quarter an hour. And then I came in on Saturdays, and he wanted me to work on Sundays. Mother insisted I go to church and Sunday school before I went over there, but I did work for him Sunday afternoons. And I worked for him after school from the time I started in September of 1944 until they checked him out in May of '48. They checked him out because this Molly Larson, who had been in the Army, had been drafted, came back, and under the law, why, if you had a job or if you even had a business, you got it back. So they gave him that station back, checked Frosty out, and Bob McBride, who was city manager in Omaha, had come over. And when I came into work, Frosty was all red-eyed. I think he'd been crying. He'd been thrown out because he had a good business and was doing a good job for him.
Yeah, but he has hair parted the wrong way.
Pardon me?
He has hair parted the wrong way. He has hair parted the wrong way. That
Yeah.
was before PMPA. They could just kick his ass out.
Well, Anyway, Bob McBride said, "Come on outside, I want to talk to you." And he said, "How'd you like to go to work for Phillips?" Well, by this time, I was through high school, and I graduated from high school in 47. This was May 48. I was finishing my first year at the University of Omaha, not doing very well grade-wise, and he said, "I've got a job driving a truck at the Omaha warehouse. Are you interested in going to work for Phillips?" One of the reasons for that was that a guy by the name of Ernie Webster had been vice president of marketing for Phillips. And he had come into Omaha for a sales meeting. This had been, it was the fall before that, so 7 or 8 months maybe previous. And they had another meeting in Des Moines, and so I had just come to work, and in comes this little Studebaker. And I go out, I'm in uniform, go out and greet him and immediately start to clean the windshield. And I recognized him. Of course, I knew who he was. I didn't know who this guy was that was riding with him, but anyway, Bob introduced me to this Ernie Webster, and said he's with Phillips out of Bartlesville. Didn't say much more about it, but Frosty kept one of the cleanest stations around. We used to have the old 60-gallon oil loosters where you crank out a quart at a time. Mm-hmm. And I had to wax them periodically and dust them daily. We kept a very clean station. And so Bob, while I was servicing his car, filling up with gas, cleaned the windows, and gave him the service we gave, offered to check the tires, which she did then. Anyway, Bob told me later that Ernie Webster said if that young man ever asked for a job, hire him. And so that was one of the things that led up to him asking me to go to work for Phillips.
Well, nice. So what was your official date that you started working for Phillips 66?
I actually started May 8th, 1948. But my date of service was changed when I got back out of the Army. I took an educational leave of absence. The first year would count toward your service time, but if you went more than 1 year, that additional time would be what they did was move up your starting date. Mm-hmm. So my starting date was moved to May of 49. Because I went to school. It took me 2 years to get my degree.
And what was your official end date? Do you remember your retirement date?
I retired July 1st, 1986. I had 37 years with them, and part of that special offer they had to reduce personnel was adding 3 years to your age 3 years to your service to compute your retirement. So that made me 59 and a half with 40 years service on all the computations. So it, I went to 3 different retirement planners, and every one of them said, "You're foolish to pass up that offer." So I took it. Anyway, that's kind of my job history.
So how long has it been since you've been retired?
Well, as of last July 1st, it was 25 years.
It's a long time, isn't it?
Yep.
What'd you do during those 25 years?
Well, the first few months right after I retired, of course, I was a member of Hillcrest Country Club and thought I would play a lot of golf. I soon got tired of doing very much of that. I was at a Rotary meeting. I had belonged to Rotary since 1966, although I had a gap in my membership after we left New Jersey and didn't rejoin until we went to St. Louis in 1980. But anyway, a guy named Jim Glass, who I'd worked with over the years, and I were sitting together, and a guy named Tracy Word was across the table from us, and Tracy, it turned out, was on the board of directors of a special needs adoption agency. And Tracy was telling us the problems they were having with this. This had been started under the auspices of St. Luke Episcopal Church there in Bartlesville, and a lady who was adoption knowledgeable, and she had a sidekick who was also very knowledgeable about special needs adoptions, had started this agency. The board was mostly made of members of St. Luke's Episcopal Church, most of them fairly prominent in the community. Anyway, it was explained to me that these ladies were doing a tremendous job placing special needs children, but they had no business sense whatsoever, and they had missed 2 pay periods, and although they had a pending grant, the group that was going to give them, I think it was like $2,500, wasn't going to give it unless they had somebody that would manage their business affairs for them. So Jim recruited me to, Jim was still working. Anyway, recruited me to at least go to the board meeting that evening and hear their story and see if I could help. So I did, and got involved with managing their finances and doing fundraising for them. So I did that from just a few weeks after I retired until we moved to North Carolina. I also was, during that 10 years we were still in Bartlesville, I was recruited to run for Board of Education for Tri-County Tech Vocational School there in Bartlesville. It served 3 counties. It was a school with about 2,000 students, and so I ran unopposed and was elected to a 5-year term on their board. At about the same, well, a little before that, I'd been elected to the board at Hillcrest Country Club and served 2 terms there. I was originally elected to serve out they were 3-year terms, but I was elected to serve a 2-year term and then re-elected for a 3-year term. So I served 5 years on the Hillcrest Board of Directors and was still active in Rotary.
What about, do you want to talk about the secret club that you joined when you moved there? Oh, that was the Elks Club that you're a member of now, the secret club.
The what club?
The Elks Club?
I wasn't an elk in Bartlesville.
Right, you are now though.
Well, I joined the Elks Club in Southern Pines because I wanted to play on their golf course.
But you admit it's a secret club. You can't show a secret handshake, can you?
It's Elks. You're thinking of the Masons.
So the Elks
And I'm
don't
not
have
a
secret
Mason.
hand. Are you saying the Elks don't have a secret handshake?
Not that I know of.
How do you know you're really an elk? Maybe they didn't show it to you.
What?
Maybe they didn't show it to you. You're not really an elk. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. I didn't mean to mess you up.
Well, let's stop this for a while.
You want to take a break?
Yeah.